let's talk about the origin story of the God of Darkness, the God of the Void, and the God of Symbiotes, Knull. You see, in the beginning, there was nothing. We see Knull in his home, in his darkness, in the void, and all of a sudden, light exploded into existence. And with it, came gods. They saw Knull's home as an emptiness, as clay that was willing to be molded into something else. They would go on to call Knull's kingdom space, implying that it was an emptiness that needed to be filled. You see, the abyss wasn't dead, it wasn't hollow, no, the void lived and breathed, and it had teeth. As we see Knull tapping into it and pulling out a piece of his living, breathing darkness of a realm, he notes that shadows only grow in light. We see him using that living void to taste the blood of light for the very first time as he decapitated a celestial. And the new gods then banished him for it. Now, what they didn't realize is they were sending him back to his home, back to his void. And this is where Knull went to work. This is where he would create the firstborn of a race that would later be known as the Symbiotes, and their life began as a blade. You see, the prototype symbiote, the darkness that he first spilled blood with, was unclean, it was unyielding, it was unforged. But he molded it into his very first weapon, into something useful, into something beautiful. And to this day, the weaker of the offspring of Knull's first creation still fear the fire of the forge. They still fear the sound of the celestial hammer beating the will out of them into something useful. As we see Knull using it to get to work, slaying gods across the cosmos, this sword would later become known as the All Black. It would be called the Necro Sword and the God Slayer. Together, the two of them would slit the very throats of creation. They would choke the light out of billions of stars, until one day they fell in battle, and the All Black, the very first of Knull's creation, was stolen from him. And if you don't know, this moment, this stranger stealing this weapon is the beginning of Gorr the God Butcher. We see Knull explaining this to Eddie Brock and asking him if he could imagine that. Imagine just some random mortal finding a darkness that fell from the heavens. And Eddie honestly answers that yes, he can, but he wants Knull to show him more. Knull would lay in that pit lifeless without his creation for hundreds of years until an idea spawned in his mind. He had an idea to bond his living abyss with living creatures. This way he could manifest himself, he could pilot their bodies, he could draw strength from the very host that would bond with his symbiotes, and this is where it all truly began. This is where he truly created his horde. Where he was once hollow and alone, he is now the center of a beautiful hive mind. He could control these symbiotes from across galaxies, see through their eyes, feel the death and destruction that they would bring. Until he paid a visit to Earth. See, at first, Knull was kind of taken with these pathetic creatures that would run and scream and cry away from battle instead of turning and fighting. No, he chose this planet, he chose Earth because he was drawn to the light. The light of a thunder god who wielded a power unlike anything Knull had came across yet. In the blink of an eye, this god hit Knull with a power that felt like a billion needles to the heart. He became undone, unraveled, his connection severed to the hive. His symbiotes that spanned across the galaxy were now free of his control. These symbiotes began to reach out to seek new hosts, and that's when they became infected with the light of humanity. Notions of honor and sacrifice and nobility began to infect his creation, began to poison them like a venom. Free of their master, the symbiotes began to roar in mutiny as they turned on Knull. But Knull warns Eddie that he's awake now, and soon he will be free of their Clintar. See, Brock is confused though because the Clintar are a race. It's who they are. It's where they're from. But Knull laughs in Eddie's face and tells him that what he doesn't understand is the symbiotes have kept him as their deepest, darkest secret. He asks Eddie if he can truly see it now, an infinity of symbiotes swarming around the center of something. There is no planet of symbiotes. Clintar is their word for cage. But Knull tells Eddie, your god is awake now, and your god is coming, and Earth will be my first target.